There is a version of you that never starts, never finishes, never becomes. And the terrifying part? You don't fight it, you feed it every single day. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack information, but because somewhere deep inside your psychology, you are still emotionally loyal to who you've always been. And that loyalty is costing you everything. This video is not about motivation. It's not about habits or productivity hacks. It's about something far more dangerous. The invisible identity that is running your life without your permission. Pay attention. This is going to be uncomfortable. In the 1960s, a plastic surgeon named Maxwell Maltz noticed something that disturbed him. He would perform transformative operations, fix noses, repair scars, reconstruct faces, and yet many of his patients walked away feeling exactly the same. They still saw the old face, the broken one, the unworthy one. The surgery changed their appearance, but it never touched the image they held of themselves inside their own mind. That observation led him to write one of the most psychologically devastating books ever published. Psycho-Cybernetics. The central claim? Your self-image is not just a belief about yourself. It is a mechanical system, a biological target-seeking mechanism, and your entire nervous system is designed to move toward whatever image your mind locks onto as real. In other words, you don't live according to who you want to be. You live according to who you believe you are. Every time, let's talk about the prison, because most people are in one and have no idea. You wake up, you feel the same pull, the same resistance, the same invisible ceiling the moment you try to do something that matters. You start to wonder if something is wrong with you, if you're built differently, if success is just for other people. But here's what's actually happening. Your brain is not broken. It is working perfectly. It is faithfully executing the identity you've been unconsciously rehearsing for years. The self-image is not a conscious thing. It lives beneath language, beneath willpower, beneath your best intentions. It is a deeply encoded emotional blueprint of who you are, what you deserve, and what is possible for you. And your subconscious mind will protect that image with everything it has. Every habit you can't break, every relationship that repeats itself, every time you get close to something real and then mysteriously pull back. That is not weakness. That is identity. Your system returning you to the emotional coordinates it recognizes as home. Psycho-Cybernetics calls this a servo mechanism, a goal-seeking device. And here is the brutal truth about goal-seeking systems. They find their target, always. The problem is, most people have locked in the wrong target without ever realizing it. This is why most people never change. Not because they stop trying, but because they never change what's doing the directing. You can try a new routine, a new environment, a new diet, a new discipline system. But if the self-image underneath remains untouched, the behavior will eventually snap back. Like a rubber band pulled too far. It returns to its original shape. Every time. There is a clinical name for this psychological phenomenon. People call it the comfort zone. But comfort is the wrong word. There's nothing comfortable about mediocrity. What it really is familiarity. The subconscious will choose familiar pain over unfamiliar growth because familiarity means survival to the primitive brain. That version of you that starts something and then quietly stops 3 weeks in. That isn't failure. That is a homeostatic system protecting a deeply embedded self-image. The same system that keeps your body temperature at 98.6 degrees is the same system that drags your behavior back to baseline. And until you change the baseline, you change nothing. Here is where it gets darker. The self-sabotage loop isn't random. It's elegant. It looks like procrastination, but it's protection. It looks like distraction, but it's deflection. It looks like fear of failure, but it's actually fear of becoming someone your internal system doesn't recognize. Think about that. The thing stopping you from the life you want is not your circumstances. It is your psychological immune system, your identity attacking the version of you that is trying to grow because that new version feels dangerous, feels foreign, feels like a threat to the self you've always known. So the loop activates. Scroll, numb, delay, retreat, and then shame, and then the promise to try again, and then the cycle repeats. This loop is not moral failure. It is neuroscience, and it will continue until the image changes. Here is the psychological revelation, the one Maxwell Maltz spent his career trying to show the world. Your brain does not distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. This is not metaphor. This is neurological fact. The same neural circuits that fire when you physically perform an action will fire when you mentally rehearse it with emotional intensity. This means identity is not fixed. It is installed. And if it was installed unconsciously through years of experience, feedback, and emotional repetition, it can be rebuilt deliberately, psychologically, using the same mechanism that built the prison in the first place. The tool is not willpower. The tool is the image. Here is what Maltz discovered, and what modern neuroscience continues to confirm. You must begin building a new psychological portrait of yourself, not as motivation, not as fantasy, as an internal document your nervous system begins to treat as real. This process is called mental rehearsal, and it is one of the most powerful identity technologies ever studied. This is how it works practically. You define a clear and emotionally detailed picture of who you are becoming, not who you want to be someday, who you are now. In this new image, you inhabit that identity in your mind with the same sensory detail and emotional weight as a memory. You do this repeatedly, consistently, until the subconscious begins to recognize that version as home. You also begin auditing the narrative you speak internally. The quiet voice that says things like, "This is just how I am. I always quit. I'm not the type." Every time that voice speaks, it is encoding the old image deeper into your system. You interrupt it, replace it, not with false positivity, with a more accurate story about who you are training yourself to become. You begin to act from the new image before you feel ready, because the feeling follows the action only when the identity has shifted first. You don't wait for confidence. You rehearse confidence until the system recognizes it as default, and you begin to hold the image of your end result, not obsessively, but consistently, the way a compass holds north. Your subconscious is a goal-seeking mechanism. Give it a precise target, and it will begin organizing your perception, your instincts, your decisions around reaching it. This is not mysticism. This is cybernetics, the science of self-correction toward a fixed goal. When the image changes, the life changes, not immediately, but inevitably. The person who once self-sabotaged begins to notice the pull toward old behavior. And instead of being controlled by it, they observe it. The space between stimulus and response grows. New actions begin to feel natural, not forced. Confidence stops being something they perform and starts being something they inhabit. Discipline stops being punishment and becomes alignment. Relationships change because what they project changes. What they tolerate changes. What they expect changes. They become not through effort alone, but through the relentless reconstruction of who they believe themselves to be. You are not stuck because life is unfair. You are not stuck because you weren't born with the right traits. You are stuck because you are still emotionally loyal to the smallest version of yourself, the one that was formed before you knew any better. That version served you once. It protected you, but it is not who you have to be. It is not a life sentence. It is an image, and images can be changed. The question is whether you are willing to do the uncomfortable, unsexy, profoundly powerful work of rebuilding the one thing that controls everything else. Your self-image. If this reached something in you, subscribe. Not for more content, for the next piece of the reconstruction. Because this is only the beginning.